Alright, so today we're going to be talking about my 2020 Senate election prediction. Yes, we are doing this every week. Uh, as opposed, it started off, back in April, back in May, it was once a month. It is now, since then, it turned into every 2 weeks. Now it's once a week because we've entered the week of October. This is the home stretch. So I'm not great at condensing these videos, especially prediction videos, because there's so much to say. But we're going to start by filling out our safe states. Try to make this, 15 minutes as opposed to it's usually like 20 minutes. So doing the best we can. So 43 safe states for the Democrats. That's not really debatable. Illinois could be likely because the Republican candidate or the independent candidate, Wilson was formerly a Democrat and could take away votes from Dick Durbin, and the Republican candidate was also a former Democrat, so that could be interesting, but not really too competitive. Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, not Kansas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, as well as West Virginia will be safe Republicans. So now we're going to get into our likely states. Arizona, you have a popular astronaut running, Mark Kelly. He's ahead in the polling data, and I'm just going to pull that up real quick. Arizona, McSally versus Kelly. Martha McSally, she was rejected by voters in 2018. She lost her race 2 years ago. She's going to lose again. Now, going over the state of Colorado, we're going to now pull up the Colorado Senate polls. John Hickenlooper is the former popular governor running against a relatively unpopular Senator, Cory Gardner. The one poll that they have recorded that's recent put Hickenlooper up by 9. I do think that it will be around that margin for Hickenlooper to defeat Cory Gardner. Gardner did win 2014, so unlike Martha McSally down in Arizona, he actually has a track record of being able to win a statewide election in the state of Arizona, of Colorado in his case. But that's not really going to help him. That was in a red wave year 6 years ago. And times are different, so yeah. Minnesota could also be safe, but I'm going to say it's likely. I mean, not pretty limited polls, but Tina Smith is somewhat popular. I mean, she's only been around for a few years, so Jason Lewis probably won't be able to beat her. And then Michigan, John James is a pretty strong candidate for the Republicans. Michigan. If it shows Minnesota, it should be showing Michigan. There we go. In fact, the polls have actually tightened up pretty considerably. I mean, Peters is ahead by 7%, even 8% at 9% at one point. It's since narrowed down to only 5%, so it's not really within the margin of error. But I'm going to give Peters the benefit of the doubt. He's the incumbent. He won in a red wave year. He'll do it again. So, yeah. And now we're moving on to New Hampshire, another likely state. Jeanne Shaheen is not really in danger of losing her seat. Corky Messner is the Republican candidate there. So I don't really think that she's in a bad position. She's polling ahead of Messner easily, and the polls in New Hampshire have been very accurate in the past. So the Republicans also don't seem to be targeting this. So yeah, I give Shaheen. She's a shoo-in for re-election. Now, there are likely Republican seats: Alaska, Texas, Kansas, which I'm being actually pretty in favor of Marshall on that one. So, yeah, and you may notice South Carolina's not in that column anymore, but Alaska, Al Gross is the independent candidate running there. It's, I don't really think that he is the favorite, but he's doing pretty well for an independent type Democrat running. The reason I'm putting it as likely and not lean is because this one poll put Gross ahead by Al Gross behind by 5, and it's from a Democratic internal poll, which is public policy polling. Now going over Texas, MJ Heger is no Beto O'Rourke. She doesn't have the time and energy or money, quite frankly, to visit every single county the way Beto did in 2018. Not as much hype regarding her, and Ted Cruz is more unpopular than John Cornyn is. Now, Kansas, this is really interesting because at one point I think this was a Democratic pickup when Chris Kobach was favored to win that Republican primary, but he lost to a less controversial candidate in Roger Marshall. So they're going to get Marshall's just going to get some votes that would otherwise be going to Bullier had it been Kobach. Because remember, a third of Republicans said they wouldn't vote for Kobach if he was the nominee. I'll try to pull up Kansas Senate polls. So hopefully those will come up from 538. And again, there is a lot of hype regarding Barbara Bullier. I mean, she is a former Republican, so she has hope, I guess you could say, for a Democrat in Kansas, but The latest poll has her up by 4. The best polls put Marshall the best. They're kind of split, but Marshall had the bigger lead, whereas Bullier's leads have been smaller and more within the margin of error. A-rated poll, Marshall led by 2, sampling 1.2 thousand likely voters. I do think that Bullier will be able to make this closer than it would otherwise be, and it could be lean, but as of right now, it's a likely Republican seat, but we could see it be like 4 points by the time the election comes around. Mississippi, not much to say about this one. Mike Espy is the Democrat running there. He's not a weak candidate, but it's hard to win as a Democrat in Mississippi. And the polls have been not great for him. There was one poll that only put him behind by 1, but that was an outlier, and there have been other polls that have been much more favorable to Teresa. I was about to say Teresa Hyde-Smith. I don't know where that came from. Cindy Hyde-Smith, excuse me. So, yeah, Alabama, Doug Jones is the Democratic incumbent. That's the only reason it's likely. He won, remember, for those of you who don't remember, 2017 he won his race against a child molester. His name was Roy Moore. Doug Jones won by around 3%, a little less than that. So he won barely against a child molester in Alabama. So I don't think he'll be able to really be able to win again. I mean, Tommy Tuberville is somewhat controversial, but a lot less controversial than a child molester. So, yeah. Lastly, Kentucky, Mitch McConnell is unpopular, but he's going to win again, mostly because the Republicans who are saying, I'm going to vote for Trump, so I'm going to vote down ballot for McConnell. Trump has, of course, endorsed McConnell. And Amy McGrath, the Democrat, literally compared Trump winning the election to 9/11, and that's in deep Trump country. So I don't really think that McGrath should be the favorite to win this race, even though she's gotten a lot of hype. So now we're getting into our states that would otherwise be tilt Democrat, but we're going to go lean Democrat just because of how well this election cycle has been going for them. Starting off with the state of North Carolina. North Carolina and Maine are the only lean Democrat states that I got for you. North Carolina, the polls there. In fact, Cal Cunningham, if anything, he's actually had better polls since the scandal, or there were inappropriate texts leaked of him sending romantic texts to someone who is not his wife. So the North Carolina polls. In fact, a really good poll came out that sampled this race. Cunningham had by 10. That's not within the margin of error. Another decent poll sampling thousands of voters, but Cunningham had by 11. But the registered voter polls have been a little bit closer. If we can find the registered voter polls, Cunningham had by 1. So he should be the favorite to win this race. I mean, the latest polls have been putting Cunningham ahead by 4. The latest polls have been putting Cunningham ahead. So the scandal hasn't appeared to hurt him yet, but or I don't really think it's going to hurt him. I mean, the recent polls have shown us that most voters don't seem to care about that in North Carolina. But Cunningham, I think he should be the favorite to win this race unless we see something change between now and the election, which is unlikely. So Tom Tillis, essentially, I think he's done. And in the state of Maine, Susan Collins is the most unpopular senator in America. She went from the most popular senator to the most unpopular senator in a span of a few years. Maine is the top. And Gideon, on average, is ahead by 3.7. She had a significant dip. I don't know why that happened. I think it was just one poll. Yeah, that's what it was from Bangor Daily News. But from 538, it's been a bit better for what's her name? Sarah Gideon. I don't know why I'm forgetting her name, but she is currently ahead. She's leading Collins. Where's Maine? By, I think, according to RCP, an average of 4%. So it's still within the margin of error, but these new polls have been putting Gideon up by 1. But other polls, Gideon by 8, Gideon by 5, by 7, by 5, by 5, by 12, actually, from Quinnipiac, which is a pretty good poll, although they do actually tend to overestimate Democrats by a little. But Susan Collins should not be the favorite to win. She's not getting strong support from the Trump wing of the Republican Party. She's not even voting for Trump. There are a lot of people who call her a rhino. And then the Democrats are really mad that she voted for Brett Kavanaugh. So, yeah. Now, for the lean Republican states, we got 3 of them, and I've downgraded South Carolina and Georgia special from likely Republican to lean Republican. So, yeah, both these races, to be quite frank, are kind of hard to analyze, especially Georgia special. Now, Raphael Warnock, the polls have been really, really promising for him, actually, which is interesting, Georgia, because ahead by 17 on October 10th, ahead by 10, ahead by 6, leading people like Kelly Loeffler, leading Doug Collins, leading Matt Lieberman. And it looks like Warnock is, because of Obama's endorsement, has been definitely gaining a lot of momentum in this race. So I'm going to keep it as lean. At one point, I was actually debating putting in the safe column for the GOP, but this race is getting a lot better for the Democrats and really quickly. So that's interesting to look at. Now, the state of Georgia, which as of right now, I do think should be considered a lean or tilt Republican seat. John Ossoff and David Perdue are going at it right now. Ossoff, the latest polls have been pretty good for Ossoff. Georgia won. Hopefully that's what it is. Yeah, the latest poll put Ossoff up by 1, although that was a Democratic internal poll. So, yeah, Ossoff never had the lead, but according to RCP, but it's still, he's still running a promising campaign. He has the ability to win, but again, he's running against a popular incumbent in a somewhat red state, and I do have reason to believe that there will be voter suppression here. So, Georgia, I think the Democrats should not be considered the favorite to win there. Now, South Carolina, the latest polls have been putting Jamie Harrison, yeah, you heard that right, Jamie Harrison ahead. South Carolina, Graham versus Harrison. I know RCP is not generous at all to Harrison, but other polls, like on 538, the polls have been a lot better for Harrison. The latest, Harrison ahead by 1, and basically a tie in these last few polls. Harrison up by 2, although this poll isn't really graded, so it might not actually be legit. So, yeah, but the best polls, again, there was one in February that put Graham ahead by 17, but that was, back in February. A lot has changed since then, and, better polls since then. Harrison up by 1. So, I do think this race will be closer than most people think. In fact, there's been a lot of hype around Harrison saying that Graham's actually going to lose the Senate seat. I'd say Harrison has a 1 in 5 chance at winning, which is better because I thought he had no chance back a few months ago. So, lean Republican for the state of South Carolina. Now we're moving on to our 2 toss-up seats. So, here we go. I'm going to flip these two. I'm giving Iowa to Teresa Greenfield and Montana to Steve Daines. I don't know what it is. The polls in Montana have been really, really weird for me. I don't really know what to say. Bullock is a popular governor. The Democrats have been able to win here, yes, but just these polls in Montana have been pretty good for the Republicans. So I'm going to trust them, and I'm going to say, well, it is within the margin of error, and I could be flipping back and forth between Montana, but as of right now, if I can pull up Montana, the latest poll has it even. I don't think I am super, I'm not sure that I think Bullock is going to be able to win this race at this point in time. I'll have to, talk to more people. I'll have to see what I think. But Montana is by far the biggest toss-up. Now, Iowa for Teresa Greenfield, RCP polls, which do actually tend to lean to the right. Iowa, Greenfield held by 4.8 has been the average. She's been leading in most of these polls pretty consistently. So, Iowa, at this point in time, I have to give Greenfield the edge. She's doing a lot better than I expected in the polling, and it's not within the margin of error anymore. I mean, these polls are putting her outside the margin of error for Joni Ernst, and Joni Ernst is losing in popularity. So, as of right now, we flipped Montana and Iowa. So that'll have to serve as my prediction for right now. I'm probably going to change Montana and Iowa back because I usually like to characterize Montana as a Democrat state and Iowa as a Republican state, but this is what I'm going to say for right now. Thank you all, and goodbye. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, it helps me out a tremendous amount.